Hey, Squirrel Bait. How you doing today? We are back in the Book of Enoch. Chapter 7 is what we're up to. So, last chapter was these sons of God, or they calls them the messengers, children of heaven. Excuse me. And they all got together and made like a pact to they knew it was a sin to go down. They were lusting after women, human women, and they knew it was a sin. So they made this pact to go together in case they were caught, I guess, that they would all share the burden of it and not just their leader. And I know I'm going to butcher his name again, Semjaza. So in chapter 7, and we also learned that in Genesis chapter 6, it basically says the same thing, only condensed. But chapter 7 starts out, and all the others took wives to themselves together with them, and each chose one for himself. And they began to go into them, and to defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bore great giants, whose heights was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and to drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. So, chapter 7 is a little bit short, but it's basically, it looks like, kind of talking about the offspring that they were talking about in chapter 6 of Genesis, the Nephilim, right? Nephilim? Yeah, Nephilim. And so the Nephilim, as I'm understanding it, are the offspring of this union between the messengers of God, right? And the messengers, the children of the heavens, and the human women that they were lusting after. So this is just kind of like a quick little afterwards. Now, I'm not 100% sure what an L is, whose height was 3,000 ells. ELLS. I have no idea what that is. But this was also, I don't know if there's an L in existence today, or it's probably something ridiculous now. I don't know if it's, the same measurement they had then, because I know a lot of times these older measurements weren't like standardized. But this is kind of interesting though, because there's a lot of old like Native American lore and stuff about like cannibalistic giants in North America. And who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Yeah, there's a lot of like Native American in the West tales of like man eating giants. So it's kind of interesting. Now, this here, I'm kind of curious what they mean by this. I mean, the author's long gone, so I can't ask him. But, and they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh. So they ate men, and they ate each other. But the sinning against the birds, the beasts, and the reptiles, and the fish, what on earth does that mean? Like, were they just eating them? Or were they like killing them for sport? I do not know what that means. Insulting them? I'm not sure. And to drink the blood. So they were drinking each other's blood. It's a very interesting verse. You know, and then the angels, it talks about a little blurb here, you know. They would go into them and to defile themselves with them, the angels defiling themselves with the human women. And they taught them charms and enchantments, and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. So they taught them herbalism, I guess. I mean, that's the charms part and enchantments, which, so this is a biblical verse basically saying that, you know, magic is real, taught by the angels to the humans. But then it just says, you know, charms and enchantments, and then it includes herbalism with that. So I wonder if they're not just saying herbalism, like taught them how to make medicinal things with herbs, made them acquainted with plants, because they were like Genesis chapter 6 here. Whenever it discusses the Nephilim, we're talking several hundred years have passed since we're talking several hundred years have passed, right? Because in chapter 4 here, which is where it talks about Cain and Abel, it oh, hang on, let me even go back a little bit further. Like, you have the fall of men, which they don't discuss how old Adam and Eve were at the fall of man. But then you have the curse. Yeah. So Genesis chapter 3, after they had eaten the tree of, you know, the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and he curses the serpent. Then he curses the woman. You'll have pain in childbirth. And then Adam, because you listened to your wife, which is always a bad idea, and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread, till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. So, I mean, he's basically saying that, you know, he's going to make Adam a farmer. Like, I've got a garden, and this is pretty much a yearly struggle for me, the thorns and the thistles and the weeds, and you'll eat the plants of the field. So, he already had knowledge of plants. So, what knowledge of plants are they discussing here? I do not know. And let's see, and Cain was also a gardener, a tiller of the ground. In chapter 4, you know, when it's talking about Cain and Abel. And so they already knew about plants. And then let's see. Somewhere in here, I think it actually says Enoch's name. Seth, Enosh, Kenan, because chapter 4 and chapter 5 has pretty much a long list of its genealogy. So Adam was 130 years old when he had Seth. Then the days of Adam after he became the father of Seth were 800 years. And he had other sons and daughters. But all the days Adam lived were 930 years. Seth lived 105. Enosh, other sons, Enosh. So then Jared lived 800 years after he became the father of Enoch. 162 years and became the father of Enoch. So we're talking like if each generation's about 110 years apart from looking at this, we've got Adam, 130, Seth, 105, 235, Enosh, 90. So we're 300 and something. Enosh, Kenan, 70. So we're about 400. So Adam is still alive through all this because it said Adam was 800 years. So Adam is still alive when the fourth generation comes around. Kenan were 910 years. 65 years. Lived 830 years, all the days of Malel. So they're having kids in their 70s. Jared lived 162 years and became the father of Enoch. So we're about 700 years or so. When Jared lived 800 years. All the days of Jared were 962 years. Enoch lived 65 years. Yeah, so Enoch is the son of Jared and became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah, and he had other sons and daughters. This is kind of interesting. It's got a little thing about Enoch, the author of the book we're writing, but it's uh, Genesis chapter 5, verse 24. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So Enoch lived a pretty short life before God took him. It doesn't say he died. Everybody else, it says they died. But Enoch, it just says God took him. But he walked the earth for 365 years. So when he's writing this book, they've been gardening for 1,000 years. So I'm kind of curious again what they're talking about, when it taught them the cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants, because they already knew plants. Like, I don't know if they're talking about genealogy. I don't know if they're talking about what Gregor Mendel with the peas, like selective breeding, cross pollination. I do not know. It's pretty interesting though. But I guess they'll continue it in chapter 8. So until then, Squirrel Bait, I love you and I'm proud of you, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Keep your chin up. We'll talk to you later. Bye.